Hi, I'm so excited to introduce Rabbi Jair. Did I pronounce that right?
Yair.
Perfect, Jair.
Scandinavian J.
Who is the chief rabbi of Denmark since 2014. He was born in Norway and grew up in Jerusalem. He is part of a dynasty of Danish rabbis and is married to Tali and has 3 children. Thank you so much for teaching this class today, Rabbi Jair.
Of course. And I'm happy to be with you. I chose a story to study together, which is a quite known story. So I don't know how much new things I can come with, but let's see what we can come through, and I hope that the people who are participating can come with questions, comments, and everything during this study session. The story is the story, of course, of Migdal Babel, Babel Tower, which is one of them. It's one of the most known stories in the Bible regarding paintings and such. Like a story that was really is part of general society, Jewish Christians, and all over the place, and has both a unique name. And I have to admit, it's quite a weird and a bit mystical story. When we come to try to understand, I hope we'll come a bit to that today. So we'll start with just reading through the story. I hope I can share the. I have the document in Hebrew and English. Yes, I can. Here, so so just a very simple part of the text. We talk about Genesis 11, Bereshit Yud Aleph, and I'll try to read it as much as I can. Pardon my English. My wife is South African originally, and she hates all my mistakes in English. So I'm happy she's not part of this shiur. So, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach to heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we'll be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men were building. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be withheld from them, which they have schemed to do. Come, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there upon the face of all earth, and they ceased to build the city. Therefore the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. That's the story of Babel, and this story, this very short story, when we come to the book of Genesis, this is one of the shortest stories in the Torah at all. 10 psukim, 9 psukim in Genesis, but a complete story. And there are many questions that are raised when we see this story, and I will start with a very basic and important question of what is the sin of these people this question of what is the sin of these people is one of the biggest questions that we can find in any readers of this story, because there's no clear answer to that. We have, just like anywhere else in the Torah, basically every sin that man can do was put on these people of Babylon. And I can give, just for example, we have from the one side we have the most classical interpretation, Rashi and others who went to say that the sin is because of the name they want to create for themselves, which is a kind of avodah zarah, idol worshiping. They're going against God, and this is in a way the creation of idol worshiping because of these words of v'na'aseh lanu shem, and let us make us a name. This direction that Rashi, Tzfon, and others hold is based on an idea that comes from in the content of Bereshit, that the name we have, this is one of the goals. The very clear other person that have this name in Hebrew, Na'aseh lanu Shem. Shem is the father of us, of the Israelites, but also of most of the people. That's where the word anti-Semitism comes from, of Shem. That's the source of it. But also later, Avraham. It said when taught tells about Avraham, he calls in God's name, Vayikra b'Shem Hashem. So there is a kind of a dialogue between the story of Babylon and the story of Abraham, the difference between idol worshiping and monotheism, the calling of God's name. Some added the sin of gava, of pride. Let's make ourselves a name. This is something that we know from today, right? We hire people to create us a great name. Politicians need spin doctors and people to help them create a better name. Every company needs creative to create them a name, and part of that is some kind of a gavav. If we need to create ourselves a name, maybe we don't have one. Maybe our name is a bad name. We need to have a better name. So this is part of the same direction. There are others who went to a question of, for example, Rashbam and Radak, who said that the sin is that they try to avoid, if Rashi focuses on make us a name, then Rashbam and Radak, they focus on lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. That we have here, that this goes against the only thing God told people. God told people they're supposed to spread upon the earth. You are supposed to spread all over the earth. So maybe this story, the focus is in they're going against God's message of spreading, of going all over earth to conquer it, as God said in the creation of men, of Adam, both men and women. Now, in another direction, that some say, especially Ibn Ezra, he said these people, they didn't make any sin. It was a sin, it was wrong, but they didn't know that they acted against God's will. and that's why their punishment is also different. That they when we do a sin, we have to know that it's wrong. You can't blame someone for doing a sin if no one told them ever that this is something wrong. But even though they did something that was against God's will, and doing it against God's will, this is what brought the the punishment. So this is like different directions. Some even choose a whole different one, and now I have to show the Hebrew text because it doesn't come through the English one. That when God comes down and to look what the people have done, it says, and the word yazmu, is connected, had a very, very negative connotation in Hebrew. It's connected to zima. I actually don't even have the right word in English, but it's connected. Usually, zima is connected to sexuality, different aspect of very bad aspects of sexuality, something that is also, of course, seeing wrong. So in general, we can see here so many different sins that were given on them. The idol worshiping can be a sexual problem, can be going against God's word, can be about spreading around the world. So many different sins. And I will argue that because we have so many different interpretation, then this text probably doesn't include a simple sin, at least. It went so far that there were even some researchers that tried to say that there's nothing wrong about what they did. Now, to answer and to find out what's the source and the key in this story, we can go to many different directions. I want to start to try to find out who and what are these people, and not because I can be definite about it, but it's actually unclear why does this story come exactly here. Where is this story supposed to be placed in the book of Genesis? And for that we have to remember that what we have before this text is a description of what we call the Shiv'im Umot Olam, the 70 nations of the world that are spread all over the world. We start from right after the story of Noach and the ark, and all of chapter 10 goes to now these are the generations of the sons of Noach, Shem, Ham, and Yefet, and talks about how all these nations spread to different places, to different tongues, languages, and we go through so many different names. This is the whole chapter 10. Then comes our chapter, and then comes the story of the generations of Shem. So it's a definite that the Torah goes back to Shem, Ham, and Yefet, the sons of Noach. We read all their children, grandchildren, many generations after them. And after the story, we go back to Shem. So it's unclear historically if the Torah is definitely not a history book, but where did the Torah choose to place this story? Some says that this is supposed to come before. So this is the source of how all the nations were spread all over the world. This is very hard to say that because the Torah could easily place this story before the story of all these nations spread, and I will very carefully argue that this story comes against the previous story of all nations created and spread around the world. And now we have, when I ask who are these people and what they are and where they're placed, this immediately something you can see when we read the first psukim in our story. Because one thing is very clear, that we have no clue who these people are. In every story, when we start a story, we start by representing the people who are the stars of the event. Who is these people we're talking about? We need to know Noach. First, we have to start telling who Noach is, and then come all this story. We need to know who Abraham is, and then we can. And here we lack this very important part. Who are these people? It says, maybe we should understand, and the whole earth, maybe he talked about all the people in the world. But if it's all the people in the world, how come they come from one place to another, and their place in Vayibin, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar. So they found a place in the land of Shinar that already exists. So there were people in Shinar before they came. So how come they can travel around if they don't know if we don't know who they are, and if it includes all the people in the world? And here we can very gently argue, and I'm not the first one, and many researchers talked about it, that this might be mentioned also before. It tells the first time we read about a place called Babylon, as it comes here, but actually in the previous chapter. In chapter 10, we read about a person that is very unique. We read about Nimrod. The story of Nimrod I can share from, let's see if I can find, how can I stop the share? Yeah, stop share. When we see the book of I can't share this now. I can't find it, but I can read it for the text that I have in front of me. So it said that Nimrod began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. There's no hint what this Nimrod is about. Torah just say he's something special that everyone knows about, but no one knows. And then it says, "V'tehi reshit mamlachto," and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, in Erech, in Akkad, in Kalne, in the land of Shinar. So here is mentioned a place called the land of Shinar. And we hear about someone who has a kingdom that includes Babylon, that we read about in our story. So there is suddenly a connection that is at least interesting. And another interesting thing, we can say that he comes originally from a different place. He comes from the west and goes east. He's the son of Cush. Cush is the area. Cush is today the word that you're not allowed to say. This is our N word. That the way that in Hebrew in my childhood you used to call black people, you'd say Cushi, which was it's like our N word. We don't use it anymore, and it came originally because of the name of the area that was Cush. So he comes from there and goes to the east. Eretz Shinar is in the place of Babylon. So here maybe we have a hint of someone who moved from his original place and started to create a kingdom. something that was different than anything in the past. So this is just a conclusion, and maybe our story is in a way connected to, because we talk about the very same place, and then we need to think of that in that connection. That's the first thing. Now, the other aspect that we need to look in the story is also what is special about them. What happened? Why is God disturbed by what's happening with these people? What did they do? And I need to look back to our text and try to find out what is it they do. What is very clear that they don't have a name, because they need to create one. So they say, and they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for a mortar. And they said, and it's very important here that when the Torah says here twice, and they said again, that these two things are separate. It says, "Come, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach to heaven, and let us make us a name," and so on. So we can see that they say two things. The one thing is, let us make bricks, and the other one is, let us build a city and a tower. When we have these two sentences, one after the other, that means that we need to see them as separate things. We would expect that they will go vice versa. That the first sentence would be, "Come, let us build us a city and a tower," and so on. And then the other sentence will be planning, how are we going to build the city? Why do we need bricks? We need bricks to build a city. We need bricks to build a tower. We need bricks to create all the things we want to. But here it comes opposite. They start with telling each other, let's create these bricks and burn them thoroughly, and created the bricks. And then comes the next layer, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach to heaven. Now, these things they say to one another connects to one of the very difficult questions that comes already in the first sentence. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Again, many people try to interpret what are these things of one speech. I wouldn't translate dvarim achadim as one speeches, because dvarim achadim is many. Is like achadim in it's achadim is like saying in Hebrew few. Echad is one. Achadim is a few, but not many. So dvarim achadim is, it can be, some would say that it explains safa achat. Some say it's the content of the language is the same. Achadim it might be like meuchadim, achdut, of united. So being the same things. They all had one language and said the same things. Maybe that's why we see here, and they said to one another. But when we hear said to one another, then we expect a dialogue. But here we have, they said to one another. They didn't talk to each other. They said to one another monologues. They had few things of speech. They had few words that they all agreed on. They were very, very united, strongly united. United is always such a positive thing, and that might be some of the difficulty that they will approach to at the end. It's very clear that the end of the story goes exactly against this, that the whole earth was one language and one speech. So the end of the story would be that these people who dwelt there in the land of Shinar were spread all over the earth, and they spoke many languages. So it again came exactly against what they wanted in the beginning. And also, as I said here, as we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth, this is what they were worried. This is exactly what happened to them. So why do we have these two layers of speeches, the one and the other? And I would argue that here, the Torah wants to differentiate two two difficulties that come from that that comes in the story. The one is I would say a technological breakthrough. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." This is the way I read it. This is a technological breakthrough of creating the bricks. And being able to do that, they will be able to build the building. They will be able to build cities, towers, and so on and so on, because they had the technological breakthrough. They didn't have the technological breakthrough because they built a city, but they built a city because they had a technological breakthrough. The city here and the tower, and I know now I'm going against the majority of the people who read it. What I grew up on, that building the tower meant fighting God, meant going, trying to be bigger and so on. But here we can see that the reasoning behind building the city and the tower is to avoid something. Penafut, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. They didn't build the city and the tower to fight anyone. They built the city to avoid something. They wanted to insist that everyone stay exactly there. And if that's the case, it means that the goal of this whole story is actually a question of unity. We know that people, when they try to get unity, they try to find joint projects. Let's build huge towers. Let's create something amazing that everyone will want to be part of. This is what every community, every society needs to have some kind a gather point, something that joins everyone around something. This is something that every society needs. And they understood that too. So why do they build a tower and a city and a tower? Because they want everyone to stay together. And why are they worried? Why is it so bad to be spread upon the earth? And here, I will slowly argue that they're worried to be spread upon the earth because of what happened in the first thing they said. Because it started with a technological breakthrough. And probably this technological breakthrough could only happen because they were gathered there together. They needed each other to get this technological breakthrough. They couldn't do it without it. So their unity was crucial to continue the technological breakthrough. This is what they really wanted. Why do we need to be everyone together? Because we found out that we could do something unique that no one knew before. We are so special. And that's why they insisted on trying to continue doing that. They built a city and a tower to make sure they stay together to build a city. And I would argue that is exactly what happened with God. And that's why this is what God sees. This is also why God doesn't punish them. We all read this at the end of the story that God confused their languages as if it's a punishment. And it is in a way a punishment because it's what we call midah keneged midah. They wanted to stay together. God spread them all over the world. They had one language. God gave them many languages. But this is not necessarily a punishment. Because if we need it to be a punishment, then we lack something crucial in what God does. Because God comes down to see the city and the tower. And then he says, behold, the people is one and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be withheld from them, which they have schemed to do. God doesn't say they did anything wrong. God is not upset. God is not angry. Usually in the Torah, when the people in the generation of Noah did all the wrong things, we read about God that was sad and angry with the people. And here, there are no feeling attached, only words, only a rational explanation of the situation he sees. God doesn't say, oh no, this is not okay. God says, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. God is not angry or sad. God is worried. He's worried because he understands exactly what they understood. God comes down to the people, and what he sees, he sees people who have no limits. There's no limit to what they're capable to do. Not morally, maybe morally, we don't know. Some said that I didn't mention before, some said that their sin was that they didn't care about people, that they killed people, disturbed building, that they were murderers. We don't know anything like this here in the story. But what we see in God's words is only one thing. God is worried about what these people might create. He says there's no limit to what they will be capable of doing. God understands the power of unity. He says the reason that they can do all of these things is because they have only one language. When, behold, the people in one, and they have all one language, that means they can do everything. The power of unity, which the people sees, they see their power because that they're united, that they can have a technological breakthrough. God sees exactly the same thing. He looks at them and sees that they have these technological breakthrough and they are able to do anything. And why? Because they have unity. They have only one language. They talk the same things, and they're focused on creation, on this technological breakthrough. And then they're able to do anything. What? God doesn't know what. He doesn't warn from one specific thing they will do. He doesn't say it's too dangerous because they might build this that is problematic, that they might build something else that. He just says, and now nothing will be withheld from them, which they have schemed to do. Anything they will try to do, they'll be able to do, because this is the power of unity. And in that sense, when God comes down, if I go back to the headline of my shiur today, when God confuses the languages and spread them all over the world, God says unity is bad. The pluralism that we come to at the end is not a punishment to the people of Babylon. It's the gift God gives to the world. I always read this story as a child, and the way I learned it, God confused their languages. That was a punishment to what they did. But pluralism, in this aspect, is exactly the answer to the danger of unity. I know it's a weird thing today because we always learn that unity is a great thing, that we need to be more united. We need to. United is seen as one of the best virtues, and I think it has. We can also have many different other places in the world, in the Bible, that also talks about how we need to be together and united and so on. I can mention at least the very clear place when all of the Israelites come to the Mount of Sinai, and they say, and the Torah says that Va'ichan Sham Keneged Har, they parked there in front of the mountain. It says it not they parked in many, but one. It says Va'ichan as one. And the interpreter says Ke'ish echad belev echad, one person with one heart. They were all together united. That's the great, amazing thing of Sinai. But that's a unity of a people, not unity of the whole world. And that is crucial in the biblical story. That the whole world is not supposed to be united because it's dangerous. I can add even more. If we look back to the beginning of the story, again, it said we lack one thing they don't have. It says, in the whole earth was one language and one speech. But we don't have a name. We don't know who these people are. Maybe it's exactly the opposite than what we read in chapter 10, when everyone had a name. Chapter 10 is basically a list of names and places and languages, each to their people, each with their own unique name. These people, they don't have a name. They want to create, let us make us a name. They don't have a name. They need to create a name in a way you can say, and now I'm really sorry because I know that my audience today is come from the continent of America. And I would argue that in a way, this story is exactly the story of America. Of the idea of when we talk about the founding fathers of the United States, that the whole idea of the United States was this is a place where we don't care who you are, where it's not about where you come from, but where is it you choose to go to? What are you capable to build? Do you want to be part of creating the future? We don't care what you did in the past, what you're running from, whatever. Come, join us. If you have the power, the abilities to build, being someone who can think and be creative, come and join us. We don't look on your past, we look on your future. The U.S., the country of the state of the U.S. was built of immigrants who didn't have a joint past. They only had a joint future. And in many ways, I will argue that this is why America turned to be so amazing and being able to create amazing things. Because they were united in a dream of building a future. They said, let's focus on what you can create. And you can find, until today, you can find immigrants from all over the world that can be heads of Americans companies and such. People can come from all colors. I know there are racial problems and such, but in principle, people are able to come from wherever and be part of the American dream that looks on what are you going to build. And this worked. It worked. I would say that the Americans managed to build the Tower of Babel. They managed to come to the moon. I mean, this is exactly what God says. When the people are united and concentrated on technological breakthroughs, then they will be able to do anything. And definitely you proved, I'm sorry to blame you, you are the American that right now in front of me, you proved that this is right. Americans proved that when people are united in looking to the future, they are able to build anything. But maybe this is exactly what God is worried about. Because when you're able to build anything, then there are also no limits to the dangers of the thing you are going to build. So in the same time, you can build the most beautiful and amazing buildings and technologies and medicine that helps the whole humanity. But at the same time, the same breakthrough can create our terrible smartphones, which I hate. They can create atomic weapons that can destroy the whole world. So the technological breakthrough has a huge danger. And that is exactly what happened in our story. God is worried. He's worried of what people are capable to do. Not because their intentions are bad, but it's because there are no limits, because when the technological breakthrough starts, then there's no end. And today, you might say that the American story is spread all over the world. And today we really have, for the first time ever, an international one language. Here, I sit today in front of you, Chief Rabbi of Denmark, speaking to who was raised in Israel, and speak to you with an English that you can understand. Even not one of the worst you ever heard, right? I hope so. So how come I can speak English? English was spread because everyone that want to be part of this story of the Western world and the whole world needs to understand English. It needs to be part of, maybe in the future it will be a different language, maybe Chinese, maybe something from India, I don't know. But the idea that everyone needs to speak English to be we are living the nightmare that God was worried about. And maybe the technological breakthrough, we don't have the powers to stop it anymore. It's too strong. It's stronger than us. And maybe we came to that breakthrough that God was so worried about. I don't know. Maybe we're paying the price of these technological breakthroughs that happened through the last 200 years. And today we all see the climate aspects of these changes that are the direct result of these technological breakthroughs. So we thought that we are trying to be united and build things together that will serve and help all of humankind. But maybe we ruined our own earth and universe. This is a big danger that God was worried about. And maybe today we see the ruins and the end of the story of the Tower of Babel, because now the city of Babel and the Tower of Babel exists again. And it's a sad life. Unfortunately, I don't have a positive, optimistic end to this shiur. I think the reading of this lies in the essence of the story of the Tower of Babylon. But the answer that the Torah said, and the answer that maybe we need to go back to, is stop trying to find ourselves a name and go back to our name. Being different, a real essence of pluralism, not pluralism within unity, not a pluralism, everyone that are more or less like us can be united, can be part of the story. No, a unity is also spread all over the world, not necessarily being all the time in collaboration and work. Maybe we should re-embrace being very different, having different cultures and different religions and different views and different experience, different languages. Maybe that's essential to behold a balance of the world. There are dangers in that too. But these dangers, they are smaller than danger that can ruin the whole earth. So in a way, our goal is to refine ourselves, not through going to become someone else, but to find our roots, not create a name, but refine our own name, and that other people do the same things. being real pluralistic, give place to different people that will be completely different than us. And then we'll come to the vision of all of the nations that speak together, but like you used to do in the UN. Not that the whole discussion happened in English, but with interpreters, with someone translators, with people we need to have a cultural gap that we need to be able to bridge. Not being everyone with the same, not watching everyone the same movies, reading the same books, and that will be going back to Babylon. We should be very different and then meet and then build the bridges between the different cultures. But they need to stay at the bridges and not being one. Yes, these are the thoughts that I had. There are many more things in detail that we couldn't go through sorry to the whole thing, but these are my thoughts of the shiur today.
Hi. Okay. Is it question answer time?
Of course.
All right. There's so much to unpack here. There is so much here. What I wanted to bring up, especially my younger sister works for NASA. So when you started talking about putting a man on the moon, I immediately went to, okay. But what I was thinking, one of the ideas that popped into my head is that God like had the cherubim guarding the tree of life after the fall. And basically kind of the same idea. If humans eat from the tree of life, then it's going to just go completely, there's no stopping them and everything. Is it, one thing that I also wanted to think about though is that, is it just an inevitable consequence? The more knowledge we get, the more openness to differences of opinion, differences of interpretation of things. So is that just something that, when it talks about confounding, there might be confusion when, okay, some new historical source has come out and everybody's interpreting it different ways. Someone else who's reading about it might be confused on, okay, so which is the correct interpretation? And no human ever gets like a 100% correct interpretation. So is the story also about just the inevitability that humans are always going to, every time we take a step forward, there are always going to be all of these different paths that are confusing which one to take. All of these different paths come out in front of us, and it'll be very confusing for us to figure out which one to take.
What you say now, I think in a way, I see it as an optimistic possibility. Mm-hmm. Maybe God is supposed to, at some point now, come down again and make some kind of a mixture that will, again, we couldn't manage it ourselves. So mm-hmm. Just like the people of Babylon, then God needed to come down and mix their languages. Maybe in some way it will create new paths, and then we'll separate each to our direction. And maybe, who knows? Maybe the U.S. will split between the Democrats and the things and Republicans. I have no idea what the future brings to us. Maybe we'll have some kind of will be saved in the last second against. I'm not sure, because in many ways I feel very clear that the technological breakthrough that we experience today is stronger than ever before. Mm-hmm. That the amount of new technology and the tempo is crazy. Like mm-hmm. we double the amount. I think that ever since that, who was it that said that there won't be any more patents, like about 100-something years ago, that very soon there won't be any more patents because we found almost everything. And there was someone in the patent office in the US 120 years ago who said that. I don't remember who. But I think today we have more patents than ever before. And every year it's like twice as much as the year before. It's crazy. Like the amount of new inventions is unstoppable.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the danger is that it is unstoppable, that it's not in our hands anymore, because technology is stronger than people. And mm-hmm. we created something that can, and we already live it. That's the danger. I don't like to be a doomsday prophet. This is
okay,
not my tradition. No, but that's not my tradition. My tradition is that Jews, my grandfather, who was the chief rabbi in Denmark before me, and actually this evening is his yahrzeit. He passed away last year. He said that as a Jew we need to we have two things that are a built in being Jew. One is that we're always in opposition. Now, every one of you that knows some Jews know that Jews are always in opposition, always will take the other opinion and such. But he meant it also as a goal. We need to be always in opposition to challenge, to always challenge society and so on. And the other thing he said was that we as Jews we always need to be optimistic. He said that when we look at the Jewish history and all the people, when we read the Vehisha Amda Lavotenu Velanu in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, all those who wanted to kill us, many times we tend to stay in we sing mainly the Vehisha Amda Lavotenu Vehisha Shelo Echad we focus on we focus on every generation that's trying to destroy us. This is the heart of the song. But the heart of the song is not that. The last sentence, and God saves us from them. And we have to. So when we look at the Jewish history and see how many people that tried to destroy us and how many times we were saved, then we have to be optimistic that everything can be positive again. This is the tradition I walk with. So I want to stay optimistic and don't be focused on doomsday. It doesn't mean we don't need to be worried about and warn about problems and challenges, but we have to do it holding an optimistic view that it can be changed. And I would argue here that the source that the Torah gives us is a source that we need to embrace. Embrace pluralism and I don't say pluralism in the simple way, not of just being nice to like we want everyone to feel comfortable. That doesn't what I mean with pluralism. I mean having difficulties, having differences, huge differences, having different cultures that won't be just nice, that everyone that are just as liberal as us can be part of our story, regardless their sexuality, color, or a religion. No, being able to see the advantages of having even culture that we oppose. Having here in Europe a balance of not only having Germany and France and England, but also having Russia, and that they will be part of the story. That they are supposed to be different. It challenges us, but it gives a balance that we need as humankind. If we won't have it, that will be the greatest danger, and that can come with respect. It can come with respect to differences, but it will also give us challenges. It won't be easy. It shouldn't be. When we talk about tolerance, the word tolerance in Hebrew, sovlanut, is come from the origin of the word sevel. It's suffer. It's not. Oh, tolerance, let's be all nice and no, you suffer. You suffer that the other one has stupid opinions. It needs to be a challenge. You suffer from it. You accept the right and their obligation to be different. This is pluralism. Pluralism, not okay. Let's have a few nice cultures from each one. You'll bring your funny religious customs. You'll bring your family custom, and we'll all have some. We'll share about this. No, this is not pluralism. It's something else that we can create in our community, but this is not pluralism. Pluralism is when it's hard. When we have these differences, this is what God is willing to pay the price, and we pay a price for it. It's not a good thing. It's not an easy thing. But this is something that is there to protect us as humans.
Yes. Actually, I just had this might be completely off base, though, but I was also thinking about the namelessness of the people, like how they're just not named. Something in me just, I don't know, like that screams to me some part of that they did, but there's also nameless parts of ourselves. And that's when you're getting into kind of like, okay, so where are we in our own ways, like parts of ourselves that are kind of, I guess, unnameable, which can go a little bit, that can go into all kinds of different directions. So, but I was just wondering about that. Is there an aspect that the people actually did have a name, but it's speaking to a nameless part of themselves?
I would definitely argue that this is part of that I said that the reason I think the Torah comes with the story after we have all the people that were spread over the world with all the names. So they had a name, and the Torah says represents them without a name. So it looks like they had a name,
right?
They chose to forget it and join together in this new project of that they call that turned to be Babylon. There are also different aspects to the story, also confronting the story of Babylon and so on, and the ancient world. But that's for a completely different shiur. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was just thinking. There might be a little bit. There's still some idol worship, danger in the story, because it's kind of, okay, humans, do you really think that you really think that you're nameless? Sorry.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, but thank you for inviting me for this hot day. I hope it's one of the last hot days in Denmark, but I don't think so with climate changes and such. I think it just become hotter and hotter. So we all suffer together.
Thank you so much again, Rabbi Yair. That was a really, really great class. Thank you.
Thank you.